Hey there, welcome to a new video. Today we are having a look at a new growl sound design method. So at the end of the day, you will know how to create insane growls like these. So this is a truly special sound. So I haven't seen anyone else doing these kind of growls. And I thought, why not sharing it with you? So you will also learn something. And this is why I'm making the video today. So let me know what you think of this in the comments. Drop a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Also, a quick little reminder, I'm dropping an EP on Friday, my Alien Ambush EP. And it's a big project I've been working on for quite some time. And I would really appreciate it if you hit the pre-save button attached in the comments and in the description. The original sound design started in Razor and it sounded like this. I basically modulated some of the parameters here, like the formant of the formant oscillator, then the P-offs of the number pitch bend oscillator. I also did a little filter automation with the low pass broad, and I used the comp peak filter besides that, and the resonant reverb. If you want to copy the settings, go ahead and feel free to route the LFO to the destinations like I did here. This is already a quite nice sound. Then I loaded in a little EQ to check what it was looking like, added some distortion, some decapitator. I started using the decapitator a little bit more often now, but you can use any distortion plugin you like. After that, I added a snappy with some stuff happening in here, and this is significant for the tone of the growl. We have two formant filters, which are basically doing the same, but just in a different position here. And I'm modulating them with an audio follower down here. I actually have 3 different audio followers because I'm using the other 2 ones for the filtering. As you can see here, besides that I loaded in a disperser and a saturator. And you can change the position to whatever you like. This sounds quite cool. And now we can add one more thing in between, which I will enable later. And this is Uzu. If you haven't heard about Uzu yet, it's a sick plugin. And you can do some spectrally phasery stuff with that. And change the FFT size. And create really cool spectral and futuristic sounding tones with it. But we will enable it later again. It's not necessary for the success of the sound, but it's a nice addition for some cool variation. Next step is Spectral Dynamics. Shout out Surgeon for recommending this to me. And you can create dope stuff with it. You see, it can get pretty loud. This is why I can recommend putting on a limiter at the end of your chain. What I basically did was editing the processing shape down here. I put some sines in here, and I also played around with the slope and with the resolution and with the temp gain to just get really cool and futuristic sounding sounds out of this. After that, we have a snappy with some filtering and distortion to just make everything a little bit crispier. Another snappy, I put in a frequency shifter in here to just move everything down. And now you can hear these extremely cool formants. It basically sounds like someone was screaming. I really like this tonality. Now we have an auto filter to just filter out the high end. We are adding fusion, which is significant for the sound. And here you can hear this extremely cool re-synthesized texture. It's incredible. And you can emphasize the tonality in different ways. And I like this setting the best for this context. Now we are adding a notch filter with some drive, which is also quite needed for this. After that, another low pass filter to compensate for the high end. And then, of course, Spec Comp to just make everything tighter and more compressed. And then the limiter, but this is optional. I just put it in here to not destroy my eardrums. Now we are adding more processing to fatten up the sound, and in this case it's the Spec Comp Light 2, which was in my chain, and this also makes the sound a little bit tighter and louder. And for example, you could add more distortion at the end of the chain as well. And this was basically just the first half of the whole growl designing process. So now we are rendering this to audio. Of course, we can do some more variations with Uzu, for example, what I mentioned earlier. Which also goes completely crazy. So let's just render this to audio. And now we have this gigantic loud file, which we can use to make cool growls. Let me take our rendered file and we are putting this into this chain right here with some more processing, as you can see here. Without the additional processing, it sounds like this. We are adding some spectral gate to just get rid of the high end. Without the spectral gate, it sounded like this. so it's really noisy, and I just want to compensate for the high end with a spectral gate. Now we are adding an auto filter to cut out even more of the upper frequencies. I have a snap heap with a notch filter, which is moving with this randomized modulated automation to just create some nice texture in the lower mids. And now we can do the magic trick here. I will isolate one of the snippets here. It does not matter which one. We just have so much variation that we can get infinite sounds out of this mud pie essentially. Now we can start messing around with this by abusing the warp modes here in Ableton. So let me grab the texture mode, for example, one of my favorite warping modes, and we can start messing around with the stretching here by, for example, stretching it really long, increasing or decreasing the grain size and the flux and the pitch. And you can hear we can create cool tones by automating the pitch. So now we can add the next step, which is significant to this technique. I will draw a pitch envelope in the audio clip. So it sounds like this now. Adding a disperser, which is being utilized in the low end to just make the low end go completely crazy later on. And now we are adding Fusion again, the plugin from earlier. Another auto filter with the same chain as before, with some drive and a notch here. Now another auto filter to compensate for the high end. And some more processing like Spec Comp and distortion. So now it sounds like this. This is a crazy sound. The good thing is we have so much material in our file that we can do so many variations, and the distinct growl variations are being created by playing around with the grain size, the flux, the pitch, and the BPM in the audio clip right here. So for example, let's take this snippet now. And yeah, have I promised two less. This is crazy. Let's copy this and do a variation here so I can render this to audio later and use in a song. Let's do one more variation here by redoing the stretching and the grain size. And we can create even more variation by moving the cutoff in this randomized notch filter right here. And of course, changing the notch filter position here, creating automations, and also moving the disperser in the low end here. Watch this. So this is crazy for creating abnormal sounds, and I think you will absolutely love this. This sounds absolutely stunning. And for example, you can resample your sounds after doing this method and using it as fills in your dubstep songs or as main sounds with a nice and clean sub bass, of course. It's really rumbly. It can work as a fill, but if you want to use it as a main sound, I would cut out the low end and just do a separate sub to keep everything clean. Now we could even add chroma at the end of the chain to just create colorful sounds. So it also works for melodic genres. I think now you understood the potential of this method. And for example, one of my favorite results was this sound right here. And I came up with this by just doing the same thing as I explained right now. Resampling the sounds, doing the fusion, the filtering, the distortion, the compression multiple times, stretching, warping, pitching, and then you will come up with crazy sounds like these. Also, you don't really need Reaktor at the beginning. You can also just take a sine wave or a saw wave and process it in different ways. I just wanted to mess around with Reaktor, so this is why I chose it here as the original source. You can use any sound you like as an input, for example, meows by cats. So there's no limits. Also, don't forget to pre-save my upcoming EP. I would highly appreciate any support because it's one of the biggest projects I've ever worked on, and it would just mean a lot to me. And that's basically it for this video. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. Have a great rest of your day and see you in the next video. Goodbye.